Hello and welcome back to the Classic with Chloe Show. I'm your host, Chloe Castillo, and I have another wonderful guest for you today. Christian Collins is the president and founder of the Texas Youth Summit, a nonprofit that hosts some of the most influential political and religious leaders in the country, dedicated to educating high school and college age youth with Judeo Christian and conservative values. Christian Collins is also a speaker, author, and a former congressional candidate and consultant. Christian, thank you so much for coming on. It's great to have you.
Chloe, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all that you do around the country. I know with Prager University and supporting Texas Youth Summit, and you're at a lot of different just conservative organizations that you're a part of. So thank you for everything that you do.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for all your support with all this craziness that I've been stirring up with the music industry these days. I really appreciate it. So let's
Yeah,
just kind of hop
absolutely.
into this. My first question for you, Kevin, we can pull up on the screen here the page from Texas Youth Summit, their website. They have something on there I really like talking about being catalyst for the culture war. And you guys talk about how you're empowering the youth to be catalyst to win the culture war. That's Texas Youth Summit's one of your missions. And so, Christian, can you just speak about that? What is the Texas Youth Summit doing to make this happen?
Yeah, Texas Youth Summit was founded in 2019, and we've done it every year. Every year it gets bigger and better, and we're excited about the work that we're doing. And we have people that come from not just Texas, but around the country to be a part of the summit. We bring in very big speakers and names, as you're showing, Donald Trump Jr., and we've had Candace Owens, Yamini Park, Haley McEnany, and Ted Cruz, and Riley Gaines, among others. So we're bringing in these incredible speakers, and our goal is to excite and equip and most importantly, educate young people to be catalysts to make a difference in the culture war. It really is about winning the culture war. And Andrew Breitbart famously said that politics streams down from culture. And um, politics is really a byproduct of what is going on in the culture. And if we're going to win the culture war, we have to do it in every facet. And when I say winning, I mean educating young people so that they have Judeo Christian and conservative values and they're being change agents, they're being salt and light in the area of music, in particular on this podcast, but also in politics, of course, but in science, in Hollywood, in law enforcement, in the military, in whatever you do it to under the glory of God. You do it to benefit our society and make the world and your sphere of it and your sphere of influence a better place. So that's what we're hoping to do is have catalyst for change to be difference makers in our culture, in our communities.
Absolutely. And I can tell you that from my experience at the Texas Youth Summit, it has been just that. First of all, I think my first summit was last year. I've only been to two. And last year, I remember I was so inspired afterwards. I actually had one of your influencers, Lily Kate. She said to Doll, and I did a little interview with her after the first Texas Youth Summit. And she was actually my first interview, first time I ever interviewed somebody. And it was so inspiring, though, just to find other young people who are out there fighting for conservative and Judeo-Christian values, and to be able to have those discussions with people who are actually trying to make a change in our culture, and like you said, change for the better. So, Christian, it's so fantastic how your speakers, you talk about politics and culture, and I really think that's important. And as far as music goes, where do you think music fits into this whole fight with what the speakers at the Texas Youth Summit are speaking about? Where do you think music comes into play in all of this?
Well, I can tell you, music makes a big difference. If you look at Taylor Swift and the influence that she has just around the world, um, when she endorses Kamala Harris, when she endorsed Joe Biden, it does make a difference. And there's a lot of young women who are leaning more left. And I talked about this the other day on a radio show. I talked about how young men are leaning more right and young women are leaning more left. And there's a lot of consequences of that. I think that means less people getting together and less shared values. But as it relates to the result of this upcoming election, we'll see. But Taylor Swift does have a lot of influence, and unfortunately, she's using it in a way that hurts our country. So pray for Taylor Swift. But that being said, we've got to have good people on the right, and so that's why what you're doing, Chloe, is important. And people like Jason Aldean, of course, he's doing great work and he's taking a stand politically. Kid Rock, he's taking a stand politically. And so We have our conservative heroes, and I guess the left has theirs. But having good female artists who support the conservative cause, I think, will help us with women. And we got to reach women. So it's important what you're doing.
Well, you just brought up something that I was actually going to ask you about, so I'm so glad you did. This is something that I think very few people actually put two and two together about how important it is for the conservatives to have someone who's conservative and a woman on their side as far as culture goes and as far as music specifically goes. Like you said, Taylor Swift has a big influence on the young women of America, especially the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and actually the millennial generation as well. They were raised on Taylor Swift and they have like this kind of connection to her. And something we say is in the conservative movement a lot is facts don't care about your feelings. We're real fond of that saying. And I myself actually love it too. I think I have a hat that says it. But we have to look at also that feelings don't always care about the facts either. And especially when it comes to women, I can tell you as a young woman myself, young women are very emotional and emotionally driven, whether we want to admit it or not. And when it comes to art and music, that really has a large influence on our values, on our value structure. Beyond Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or whatever other lib she's going to endorse in the future, it's the values that she instills in her listeners through her music and through her messaging outside of her music as well that I think is having the biggest impact. And then, of course, the endorsements just kind of ride right along afterwards. So it's very important that we have young women who have someone to look up to as far as culture goes. And we talk about too, don't look at the celebrities for your influence. Don't look at them for a role model. But the fact is, young women are going to look towards people in culture in some way. It's kind of impossible to completely remove that. So you kind of already talked about this, about how important it is. What do you think we can do as conservatives to promote a culture for young women that involves music and culture and entertainment?
Well, and just backing up a little bit on what you suggested, I mean, you're right. I mean, the election, of course, is happening now, and her endorsement is leading up to that. Of course, that makes a big difference. But beyond that, I mean, getting back to the cultural stuff, the lyrics and the way she lives her life affects young people because, um, I mean, she's not married yet, and I'm sure she has time, and she's going to figure that out. But um, she in some of the lyrics that she's evidently some of the things that she said aren't very godly. So having someone who's a strong Christian woman who's conservative and has conservative values, and that being a woman that a lot of young ladies can look up to, that would be great. So um, as far as I think what young people can do that are in the music industry, I mean, well, it's a new frontier with social media. I mean, people can go viral and they can get famous, on social media without an agent, without um, someone pushing them to the front necessarily. They can leverage the power of social media to get a message out. You can start in your community and talk to as many people as you can, about different opportunities to get in front of people and sing. And um, there are different places where people do go to progress more quickly, like Nashville or so forth. People often want to go there to get seen and to get noticed, I guess is the word. But I think there's things that young people can do to meet the right people and network and find opportunities. And I think it's really just about growing a following and getting your message out. And I mean, anyone now can record uh, you know, a a song or multiple songs and produce a reel that they can send in, and producer will see that and maybe push them forward to the front and get them an even bigger opportunity. So I think it's important if you're a young artist, and I think this is important in any industry, like whatever you want to do, find somebody who's doing what you want to do and ask them, how did you do that? How did you do that? How did you get to where you are? And there may be some people that don't want to help you, but there's a lot of people that do want to help you. And Chloe, you're 19 or 20?
A 19, just turned 19.
19. you'll be surprised, but there are so many people who will want to help you um, get ahead. And so I think it's important that you find those people, leverage LinkedIn, talk to people. And maybe people in the music industry do or don't use LinkedIn. But I think to your audience and whoever's watching, whatever field or industry you're in, leverage tools like LinkedIn and find the people that are doing what you want to do. Ask them how they got to where they are. And that's $1 million question, whenever you get with them, maybe just say like, hey, can we get together 20 minutes for coffee? And, could I pick your brain and let them share about themselves? And you'll learn things by hearing their bio. And then what you can do is, ask them, if you were me, who would you reach out to? And they might say, well, if I were you, I'd reach out to so-and-so. And then you would say, well, you know, could you, would you possibly be able to make a connection with them for me? And that way you're leveraging your network. And I think some older people really want to help younger people pay it forward, and there will be people that will help you get to where you need to go. And so God uses people to help us get to where we're supposed to be to accomplish his will for our lives. And life moves at the speed of relationships. God's favor always flows through people, and that's what I've lived by, and I've tried to operate in. So hopefully that offers some insights and some help.
I think it definitely does. And I think that your summit as well is a big step in that direction. Like you talked about the networking and the relationships and the in person aspect of that too. I know that when I got involved in all this conservative world with my music ideas and all this kind of stuff, it was through PragerU originally, through their online Prager Force organization. And from then, I kind of realized after I started to kind of grow an online network, I got to get in person to talk about this stuff. I need to speak to people to their face, say, hey, here's an idea. What do you think? And have these discussions and conversations. And I know that organizations like yours is making that kind of stuff possible for the youth of America who do have these kind of ideas and aspirations to make change in our culture or our political landscape or whatever it may be. They actually are given that opportunity to talk to each other, to network, to speak to people who are more advanced in whatever industry they want to get into. And I think it's just really fantastic. I know I spoke with Yaku Buyans at your last summit, and he's doing some very, very interesting things as far as entertainment industry goes. And I know that he is a big fighter when it comes to the sex trafficking and the what children are being exposed to these days. And it's just it's incredible when you look into this music industry thing going on today, way beyond just P Diddy. Of course, there's a lot of stuff going on with the music industry. It's just really sick, and it's fantastic though that you have people like that who are trying to make a change, who are making a difference, and then who are willing to speak to people like myself who are also kind of going into something similar and have these discussions and conversations. So thank you for that summit. It's a huge blessing. I know that. So Christian, what would you say to my listeners here as far as I guess this upcoming election? What would you say is important as far as culture goes? Do you think the election is really going to impact our culture? Is culture impacting the election? How do you think this all plays in together, and what can we do moving forward to make America great again?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. But could I say one more thing just about um, your preparation and open doors and opportunities?
Of course.
Yeah. The Beatles, before they were famous, they played thousands of hours in coffee shops in different places. Um, they weren't the Beatles as we know them now without practice, and it took them years to get to where they are. And so I talked to a friend in the Houston area. He's a radio host. His name is Michael Berry, and he just recently, became syndicated on another level, to the level that Rush Limbaugh was syndicated. And he's a great guy. And he told me, he goes, I'm a 19-year overnight success, a 19-year overnight success. So that just goes to show that whatever you want to do, it takes time. When I first started the Texas Youth Summit, we didn't have as many people coming as we do now. We didn't have as many people donating or sponsoring. We didn't have as many big speakers. And my point is, everyone has to start somewhere. And so we did. And every year I've seen God bless it. I've seen it grown. Um, it's grown tremendously. And uh, it started with just building a network and going to other events. And I remember when I went to CPAC, I met Charlie Kirk, and he gave me his card and said if I could ever help, let me know. And later on, he did help. He did come to our 2020 event, and I met Candace Owens at another political event, and I got her contact, and so reached out to her, and so she came that same year, and so and then it just started to build from there, and so whether you're building an organization or a brand, a platform, a company, whatever it is you're building, it takes time. These things take years, oftentimes, and so there are some overnight successes. There are people that get famous, and they blow up and they have their 15 minutes of fame and then they're not there anymore. And then there's other people, fewer of them are able to kind of harness that and kind of have staying power. But most people, just don't, um, they don't just become a celebrity overnight. It takes years to grow an organization. And when you're leading an organization, it really isn't about you. It's about the organization. It's about the young people in my case. So, but whatever it is you're trying to do in your case, with music or your listeners, maybe, have different goals. Um, it takes time to build something. So my encouragement to you is to stay with it, stay focused, don't give up. And in due time, you'll reap a harvest of blessing if you don't give up. That's what the scripture says. So I think it's important to stick with something, not be wavering all the time in what you want to accomplish and what you want to do. Like, oh, this year I'm really focused on the pro life movement. Next year, well, I'm kind of focused on a totally different issue. And that's, I mean, maybe that's okay when you're young. You want to try different things, and you're still kind of figuring out who you are. But there's just something so good about having staying power and sticking with something, for a long period of time. Um, and you have to really pray and have to figure out, like, okay, if I'm going to try something new, you know, if I'm going to course correct, how will I make a change? What will I do differently, and how can I improve whatever your it is? And so, hopefully that's some insights that I've learned along the way. Of course, I haven't done the Texas Youth Summit forever, but I've done different things throughout my life that prepared me to do what I'm doing now. And as it relates to the Texas Youth Summit, I knew very quickly, based on the first two events that I did, that I had a gift for organizing people. And whenever I do events, a lot of people show up. And so I realized, okay, this is going to be successful. And so you're moving in the right direction if you are competent, if you're, in other words, good at what you're doing, if you're passionate about it, and if you're compensated for it. And if those three spheres line up, compensation, passion, and competency, then that's kind of your sweet spot. Like, okay, I can get paid to do something I'm passionate about that I'm also good at. But sometimes people, they don't, um, they're getting paid to do something they're not passionate about, or sometimes people are trying to do things they're not good at. Either of those combinations aren't always the best. And by the way, some people don't get paid to do whatever it is they want to do at first. If you're wanting to be an author, you got to wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning and crank out some pages and write. And if you want to be a songwriter, same thing. You got to wake up early, and we all have 24 hours in a day, so you got to spend the time to build something and get it, and put in the effort. It'll pay off, but you've got to put in the time to make it happen. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. I
Yeah.
know you asked me about the election, but I just kind of wanted to be able to say that.
No, I know. I really appreciate your advice and your advice to me and your advice to whoever else is listening to this as well. I want to just add in there as too. I know you probably have to go in a minute here, Christian, so I won't speak for too much longer. But I do think that, like you said, we have 24 hours in the day, and I think that's actually really interesting. It just brought into my mind, And not just how do we spend those 24 hours in the day, what are we doing? That's something that's extremely important. How are you spending your 24 hours? Are you loafing around the house, or are you actually getting something done, getting somewhere, like you said, trying to create something that's worthwhile, worth your time, worth spending your time doing? And then beyond that too, in those 24 hours, what are you consuming? Are you putting all this hard work with complete degeneracy into your brain, or are you pairing it with the values that you want to build in your life, the values you want to start living out? Because like I say all the time, you are what you consume. And I think it's incredibly important, especially when you are trying to build something or really advance yourself in the workforce, or just as for some women, a wife and a mother. I mean, as a wife and a mother is one of the most important jobs ever. But if you're going to consume, of course, entertainment being music, film, whatever, that's just completely destroying your values, it's going to be kind of hard to live out that life that you are working so hard towards. So I think what you consume is another key to building that kind of success.
As far as, you know, if you are an aspiring musician, author, songwriter, whatever it is you want to do, garbage in, garbage out. And so find someone that you want to model at voice. You got to be yourself. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying that find someone you want to model after and look at them and read Wikipedia pages. Read, like, how did this person, if you like Adele, for example, I don't know if you like Adele, but I'm just saying, how did this person get to where they are? And then, like, follow their career and, pay attention, like, what degree did they get? What education did they get? Or, did they spend some time in this particular area and have some sort of experience that really helped them? How did they cultivate their maybe they had raw talent, but how did they cultivate their voice to get to where they needed to be? And I'm just trying to speak very specific to the music industry, and I would say that that's true about any industry, though. You want to make sure that you're finding out, like, the details of, like, how did this person get to where they are? And I think it's important not to compare yourself to other people. Like, there's always going to be people that are more famous, or have more money, or have more notoriety. They are. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You're all good.
Uh, this is
I'm loving
this
this
is rough.
mission. This is a hoot.
Yeah, yeah. There's always going to be people that have a little bit more, or maybe a little further ahead than you. But it's really about running your race and not comparing yourself to all these other people, and being the best version of yourself that you can be. And all we can do in our lives is do the best we can, and do things for the right reasons. Don't do something to
Mhm.
be somebody. Do something to make a contribution, to make a difference. Do something to, you know, make waves and help people. Do something for noble reasons to the best of your ability. And if those other things come, then great. If you have a lot of social media followers, and if you have a lot of money, and you have everybody that just loves you, and great. But have the right motives for why you're doing what you're doing, and have a mission behind why you're doing it. And in my case, what I've tried to live by is I want to encourage people to faith in Christ so that they use their God-given talents, abilities, and resources for His glory. And so that's my life mission. And my assignment may look different. I may do the Texas Youth Summit forever, or maybe I won't. But, in this season, I'm doing the Texas Youth Summit. And that's God's call on my life in this season, is that I would point people to Him, towards Him, in my work with the Texas Youth Summit. And I also do that as a teacher at a college. And I've done that in different political roles throughout my life. And whatever assignment we have the right intentions, have the right motives, but your mission stays the same. So I would encourage you and your audience to write down your personal mission statement. Like, okay, like, why am I doing this? And then write out your goals. Like, okay, what are the things that I want to accomplish in 2025? You still can accomplish a lot in 2024, but of course the year is winding down. But, what do you want to accomplish in the next year? What do you want to accomplish in the next 5 years? Think about it in terms of your health, your relationships, your finances, your fitness, just to be the most holistic person what types of contributions do you want to make? I mean, how do you want to help people? How do you want to serve people? What do you want to do to give back? Write all these things out. And I think, just from my experience, that if you have this type of intentionality with your goals and your dreams, you'll make little decisions every day that move you toward those goals. And that's how I've gotten to where I am. I've seen this to be true. I'm specific with what I'm writing out and what I want to do. And when I do it that way, um, I'm never disappointed because I set out to do exactly what I wanted to do. And sometimes, of course, you fail and you just pick yourself back up and, you either try again or, course correct and do something different. But it's good to have goals that get you toward the 1 year, 5 year plan that you have put down for the year. And I think if you do it that way, you'll be wildly successful.
That's beautiful. I love your life mission, by the way. I think that's just fantastic. I love to hear it. And I think I love that advice, just to write down what your actual life mission is. And then, of course, how you accomplish that, how God calls you to accomplish that. It's going to be different for everybody, but I really like that. So I want to talk about, like you just said, um, your mission for a year or so. You break down that mission, that life mission. What do you want to accomplish in this next year? So as Americans, what do we want to accomplish in these next 4 years, praying every day that Trump is in office? Let's just say that he is elected our 47th president. What do we as a country want to do with our current mission in the next 4 years? Of course, we say we want to make America great again. And we have a few ways we want to do that. We want to make America healthy again. That's a new thing I'm a huge fan of that. That's really cool, I think. And with making America healthy again, I think we also need to, in a way, make our minds healthy again. I think the minds of Gen Z are more, I guess, messed with than they have been in a really long time, to put it nicely. We have I believe the highest rates of suicide and also the highest rates of LGBTQ identifying youth in Gen Z than like ever before in America. And I think that has to do with, of course, our mental health and what we're consuming. And so making America healthy again, as far as food and medicine, but also as far as entertainment and specifically music, I think that's going to be a huge part of making America great again in these next 4 years. And so, Christian, what do you think the youth of America can do, and also maybe the Texas Youth Summit will plan to do, to take back our culture over these next 4 years? And granted, Donald Trump is in office. How are we going to make that change?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the first things first, we got to make sure he wins. So hopefully this podcast will go out before November 5th. And I
Mhm.
just want to encourage your audience, do everything you can right now to get everyone that you know out to vote, whether you're in Florida, but if you have friends in all the swing states, get them out to vote. It's so important. This election really is the most important of our lifetime. The consequences of us not winning, my God, they're going to continue to send all these illegal immigrants that are pouring into our country, 10 to 20 million of them, into these swing states, and there will be no more swing states. They're going to get them hooked on entitlements. It's going to be really problematic, and that's the election outcome. I mean, but the problem of illegal immigration with the fentanyl. I mean, 100,000 people died from fentanyl overdose last year. There's child and human sex trafficking happening. Everybody's seen the movie Sound of Freedom. There's crime like we've never seen. And the DHS website talked about this. Over 400,000 people have come into our country with a criminal record, 16,000 rapists, 13,000 with a murder charge. And that's because some of these countries like Venezuela are emptying their prison systems, and they're coming into our country, and it's not safe. And that's really problematic. So our streets in our country, in major cities will be unsafe. It's going to be very, very scary for a lot of people. Besides that, as far as the election outcome, we'll be a one-party nation. We'll be a one-party nation because there will be no more swing states, because they're going to send all the illegal immigrants there. And so we're just going to be deciding on if we want a socialist or a communist. That's basically the difference that we'll be deciding on. So they'll, with all of their electoral victories, they'll federalize our elections. Instead of states redrawing the lines every 10 years with redistricting, the federal government, with the help of Congress, will decide, how these lines are to be drawn, it'll be really bad. It'll be really bad. And they will do everything that they can to get Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. to be states, and that'll mean 4 more senators on the Democrat side to cement their power. They'll get rid of the filibuster and ram through whatever they want to ram through. Any type of legislation or policy, they'll be able to do it. They'll fortify it with, taking out the Supreme Court. We have a 6-3 advantage right now. It'll be a 15-seat Supreme Court, and they'll have a 9-6 advantage. I mean, they'll do whatever it takes to cement their power, and we won't have a country anymore. So the consequences of this election, if Donald Trump doesn't win, is dire. And so I think Donald Trump is the best president of my lifetime. But if you're one of those who thinks, well, his tweets, I don't like what he says, or this or that, look, nowhere in your life is every decision you make so sacred. I mean, you're voting here based on policies. So you may not like the man. I like the man a lot, but you may not like the man, but you're voting on the policies, and his policies affect people. And so if you abstain from voting, it's very problematic, because those policies will affect you whether you like them or not. No one's going to know that you abstained from voting, but you will feel those policies. And so we've got to get out to vote. There's 30 million Christians who didn't vote in the 2020 election. We've got to get out to vote. And as far as what we hope to do going forward, well, I hope for freedom and prosperity. I mean, as conservatives, we've got to conserve something, right?
Right.
And that just means, at minimum, keeping all of those bad things that I just described from happening, because they want a totalitarian system. They're very, very nefarious that way. So, but as far as what we want to do to advance, I mean, I think we do a lot to advance the pro-life movement. We do a lot to advance the religious freedom around the country. We do a lot to advance just the policies, taking away, bureaucratic restrictions, cutting away at the size of our government. And there's so many bureaucrats in Washington. That's really the fourth branch of government that, they're controlling everything. And so drain the swamp, as President Trump would describe, and get rid of some of these bureaucrats and some of these departments that are necessary. Maybe the Department of Education, let that be decided by the states. I know I'm about that. So there's so many things that can be done. Cut taxes, and unleash America's economic power. Drill for oil and have fracking, and taxes again like we've never seen. And so we're so dependent on foreign oil. We've just got to really unleash the might of American energy so that we can revitalize our economy. And we've got to have the most powerful military in the world, and we have to have peace and strength to end all these ridiculous wars. And I think President Trump is back in there. This Ukraine war will be over today, and China won't invade Taiwan. And we're going to take care of Hezbollah, and Israel will be safe again. And that's the type of leadership we can expect from President Trump. We just want a safe world where you have freedom of opportunity and economic to pursue happiness, and that's why people come to America. So we want our streets to be safe. These are the things that we can expect, is just to have our opportunity, Chloe, myself, the opportunity for the American dream, and that's in peril if Kamala wins.
I could not agree with you more. It is a little scary to think about what would happen if she does win, or if she is, I guess, rather placed into office like she was placed into being the Democratic candidate. But I think that what you just said, that we have to drain the swamp. And in the meantime, as Americans, we can do our due diligence and vote, get out there and make sure that Donald Trump is the next president in the United States if we can. I think that is incredibly, incredibly important for all the reasons that you just listed there. And also, you said drain the swamp. So once he gets in the office, we're going to drain the swamp. We're going to fix everything going on globally. The importance of that could not be emphasized enough. And then after draining the swamp, or while draining the swamp, we have a swamp to drain on the culture front as well. I think that there's a massive swamp when it comes to what Gen Z and the youth, especially, are putting into their ears, into their minds, into their souls. And I think that as conservatives and as people who are involved in both politics and culture, like yourself and the Texas Youth Summit, we have a huge role in these next 4 years to take back both, to make sure we elect this next president, to make sure that this is able to even happen, that we have the freedom to take back our culture. And then also, once that happens, that we also work as hard as we possibly can to take back our culture so that the people who are voting in the next election have the values that keep America great instead of being up against the same battle all over again. So, Christian, thank you so much for coming on. It was great talking to you. So much great advice from you. I really appreciate all of that. I really do look up to what you've done with the Texas Youth Summit. I think it's a fantastic organization, and I cannot wait for the event next year. I'd love to be involved somehow if I could. So thank you again so much for coming on. Where can people find you, and where can they support the Texas Youth Summit?
Thank you so much for having me on. Find me at christiancollins.org. And all of my social media handles are on there. You can be a part of that, and you can go to texasyouthsummit.com and participate that way, and sign up and for our newsletter and for information to be a part of next year's event. We offer it at a very low cost, like it's like $1 if you're a young person. So just come and enjoy it and be a part. And we're excited to host everyone who's wanting to come, and we're going to do everything that we can to make the best event we've ever had. So love to have you, involved and back again. So thank you so much, and let's stay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christian.
Thank you, Chloe.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode with my friend Christian Collins. He is a fantastic patriot fighting for America, to keep America free and to keep our culture on the right track, or rather to put it on the right track. And so if you want to watch the show again for next week's episode, please go check us out on Spotify, Rumble, and YouTube, where you can keep up with the podcast. Please follow us there. Please also follow me at classically_Chloe on Instagram and classically Chloe on all other platforms. Thank you so much for joining. See you guys next week. God bless.